As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. But let's start with something which I thought was interesting and brings up some good questions. And the first slide here I want to introduce is the correlation here between active engagement with gaming and esports and discretionary income. And so what this is saying is it's looking at people in the US age 18 to 34 and the percentage that have $500 or more of discretionary income to spend every month. Okay? And what it finds is there's a correlation between being a much more hardcore gamer and having more discretionary income to spend every month. So in other words, 40% of hardcore gamers have $500 or more to spend every month in discretionary income. Whereas if you're a casual gamer, only 23% of casual gamers have $500 or more to spend every month in discretionary income. And what you look at, the total US number is at 28%. And so the total US number sort of falls in line with the core or mid-core gamer. Casual gamers sort of fall below that line, and hardcore gamers significantly above that line. Any thoughts, guys, on why, the interesting question for me is, does that mean being a hardcore gamer and playing more means you also make more money somehow? Correlation is not causation, I know that, but interesting to see the correlation here, and curious what you guys think. Let me ask this different question. Should brands be targeting hardcore gamers primarily then? Because the data sort of says they have more money to spend.
I think they're a much smaller segment of that. I would love to know it's a much smaller niche segment. So, I don't know that it's necessarily, hey, you should only target hardcore gamers because they have, more discretionary income to spend. I think you have to look at what product you're selling, what the market is, whether it's a mass market or a niche product, and kind of segment and target it that way. So
there's probably some, partly it's I think there's got to be some positive trait correlation. If you can be hardcore about anything, maybe you have positive traits like commitment or, planning or other things. So there's got to be some of that going on. I wonder if part of it is just to be hardcore at gaming, you need a certain amount of spend. I'm not sure how hardcore gamer is defined here, but maybe it's just difficult to play all the new titles and not have $500 that you can throw around,
Sure.
To some extent. Although I suspect the way they've defined hardcore, I don't know if I would buy my own argument, because I think you can be an extremely hardcore player and have put $0 ever into gaming because you're a League person, or a Valorant person or a CS person, right? So, but it's, I don't know. Other than the positive trait correlation and my explanation that I sort of don't buy myself, are there any other reasons?
Well, I think what Ramsey brings up makes the most sense, where it's in order to be a hardcore gamer, you kind of have to have that discretionary income. Thus, that's why they're more likely to have that more discretionary income.
Very good point. Very good.
I don't know if that seems to
pay
make
to
sense.
play.
Yeah. I'll just read Ramsey's comment. He says, we keep seeing the stat. I wonder if it's because of the higher barrier to entry to become a gamer with hardware requirements. I wonder if this changes over time or other regions with free to play. Whether it does or not, I think the statistic, I do believe it. There is something actionable here that says you should be going after the deeper pockets. And in a lot of ways, that's what mobile games do very well, right? The most hardcore mobile gamers, the ones who play the most, they target those whales very effectively. And so the data syncs with what also seems to be working in the industry, which I think is interesting. Let me bring up the second one here, guys.
So does that mean, Paul, real quick, does that mean you can be a hardcore mobile gamer by your conclusion?
You can be a hardcore mobile gamer. You can't be a mobile hardcore gamer.
I don't think you got out of that one. I'm counting it.
Let's talk about this one. This one's interesting. 2 in 3 esports fans are in the pre-family stage of their lives, making them an ever attractive audience. And so here they looked at, where in the life cycle, family life cycle are you? So if you look at the general population, 34% are like pre-family. In other words, you don't have kids. 6% have a young family, 16% an adult family, etc. And then you have empty nesters. If you're an esports fan, 62% are pre-family. So compared to 34, almost double the general population. That I think is obvious, right, to everybody, because esports fans,
younger audience,
right? What was more surprising to me was young family and adult family esports fans also trended higher, right? So it's not just that you're in the pre-family stage of your life, but you're not in that empty nester stage nearly as frequently as the general
inactive
population.
Empty nester versus an active empty nester. What does that mean? Like they're working, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it's retired. I don't.
I would assume it's working versus not. But Jimmy probably knows better than I do.
What I guess I'm confused when it says the line. I'm curious. What do you think they mean? The title there, it says, or you could pull it back up.
Yeah, sorry.
It making them an ever attractive audience. Do you think they're just saying that because they're a younger audience, they're earlier in their stage, so they're going to be ever, long term lifetime value?
Term. That's it, right? So longer term value out of that customer.
I agree with that.
Which I think makes sense. Again, I thought the surprising nuance here was in sort of the young and adult family, where you might have expected it to be much smaller than the general population as a consequence of, that first number being much larger. But I thought that was interesting. Let me bring up the next one here. This one may be the most interesting YouGov slide I think I've ever seen, just because it's a lot of fun and there's a lot to unpack here. Okay. And so this is fandom overlap among US population 18 to 34. Okay. And so what it's looking at is, if you look at, you can get the percentage of fan overlap between two different either sports and or esports, right? So if we just pick one at random here. So if you look at Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty and Fortnite, 57% of the fans overlap. Which you could make the argument they're both shooters, so there's going to be a significant amount of overlap there. What's most interesting to me, and I'm curious because I know you guys are seeing this for the first time, is the numbers around overlap between esports and traditional sports. Like you look at League of Legends, for example, and the NFL, and there's only 4% fan overlap, which is really small. I
just have to say, this is one of the coolest charts I've
ever
seen.
Look at the counter to that. Look at NFL fans of League. It's one of the highest. That is absolute. If I'm reading this correctly,
where?
Right? NFL bottom left. Scroll over 2 columns.
Oh yeah,
51%. 51% of NFL fans are fans of League. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
51.
Yeah. How do we read this chart?
Hold on.
Teach us, Paul. This is really important. This is really important. Which way to read the chart?
Filtered by top 2 followers. Jimmy, didn't you guys talk about this at the conference?
I was going to say.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Save us, Jimmy.
What were you doing at the conference, Jimmy?
We did. We grazed over this one because we had such a short amount of time and so many insights. I think William had it accurate. What I took from this, honestly, the correlation and the overlap also was, kind of praising YouGov here a little bit, as we tend to do on the show, and well deserved, I think, is a lot of my slides when I was going to businesses, when I was pitching as a consultant in my early years, would kind of have different insights. It would be like, oh, Dan Gilbert, Robert Kraft, right? J-Lo, A-Rod, all these sports figures that were in esports as a reason for the other endemic, or excuse me, the other entertainment properties that I was pitching at the time. And what I was missing was the overlap in audience here. And so, we do need some clarification on how to read this table. But it really it brings that full circle, right? Because you've seen all the big names. We saw, like we talked about Kevin Durant, right, with his investments and then getting into mobile. I think this brings it full circle.
So it has to be the top. So it's what percent? I mean, just clearly. So the first one we went for, 4% of NFL fans are fans of league. That makes sense intuitively. What that means is that, of league fans, 51% are fans of the NFL.
I think that's
which
correct.
Makes sense. Like, because everyone, most people are fans of the NFL. So it's not that 51%
this is the primary
of NFL
category.
fans. Yeah, that would be. I would have questioned that data.
Correct. So 21% of COD fans are also league fans, or 56% of COD fans are also fans of the NFL.
So does this then say that traditional sports and esports play really nicely?
It depends which way you go, I think, is what this says, right?
Like, because there's sort
it
of
depends
two
where
ways
your starting point is.
There's sort of two ways of reading these numbers. Either this is great because look at all these people who play League of Legends. They love the NFL and the NBA and all this other stuff too, right? That's one. Yep. Another way of reading it is look at all of these people that look at all these people that play traditional sport. Look at all these people who are fans of traditional sports. They have no interest in esports, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the other way of reading this.
Which
sort of
intuitively makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because the League of Legends average fan, right? Like, if you look at League, the average League player is going to be in that 18 to 30 is a big part of first of all, it's a big part of the US population. They're going to be in the age range of a sports fan, right? They're going to be exposed to NFL, NBA, all that stuff. The chance that they're also a fan of those traditional sports is very high, right? Better than 50% in the NFL and the NBA's case. I think the other way around, when you're looking at NFL fans who also like League, who are also fans of League, when we know, and we had seen this previous YouGov stat, right, where the average age of an NFL fan was like 50 plus. Well, now this makes a lot more sense that the average NFL fan, only 4% of NFL fans are fans of League.
But isn't it comparing 18 to 34 to 18 to 34 or no? Because that's how I read this chart.
It's all 18 to 34.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a really interesting chart. I think we need to study it more. There's like
you could probably pull out like 25 very interesting, cool, like really deep insights. I'm looking at just like an interesting one. If you look at the NBA 2K and the NBA, like 90% of NBA 2K fans are fans of the NBA. How many fans of the NBA are fans of the NBA 2K? Let's see. Only 6%. So it's like, I don't know what necessarily to make of that. I feel like I need to spend like 5 hours looking at this, but like there's a lot of cool stuff you can come up with, like insights from this one chart. This is very cool. And I've never seen it visually put together like this before.
I think it would be fun. I'll see if we can do this, but to get like Ben from YouGov to come on and help us unpack everything in here.
We should talk about this more, like a lot more, because this is a chart where like I think I need to read it and think about it for half an hour, and then like we can have a discussion.
I wish we had seen this beforehand.
Yeah, this is like that pop quiz that your professor gives you, where it's like, and you're like, well, I mean, we didn't really talk about this in class, so.
So Ramsey says golf is 14% of the US 18 to 34. 14% are golf fans, PGA Tour fans. Yeah. Trent says, I think the primary category is on the top. I agree, Trent. Stuart says, is this why traditional teams are so keen to open esports teams? I mean, I think it's no question, right? Like they were going for that youth. And I mean, the question is, where are those traditional teams spending the money? And I think there's a lot more nuance in here than just, if you're a football team, should you have an esports team? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more nuance here that is like game dependent, esport dependent, right? Like, I think
what's actually
people simplify to the point.
What I'm thinking about with this comment from Stuart is I was thinking in my head, like, do you think it is more? Do you think it's a better strategy or more of a reason for these traditional sports teams to create an esports team if there isn't overlap? Like, hey, you're creating new fans, you're getting a new audience, because that's kind of the pitch we've always heard. But what if the pitch and the intelligent thing to think about is there's actually a good amount of overlap here. So your fans are also fans of this other thing. Like, you should create a team because you're immediately going to have those eyeballs more hours a day because they're already fans of this thing. So actually, that's kind of like a thing I had never really thought about it.
But see, I don't think that's what this chart says. I think this chart says the opposite, which is if you're an esports team, you should try to open a football franchise.
Shocking. Wait, William, you're telling me people should like create an NFL franchise? Oh my God. Like,
I mean, no,
really
but
good insight.
I'm not saying that's a great thing, but I'm saying, like, I think that's the read on this chart is if you're an NFL,
just
and maybe I'm reading it wrong.
$6 billion and get a franchise slot in the NFL, and like, you're good. You'll have a lot of fans.
Well, those are only 2 steps, Jeff. I don't know about you, but like,
easy peasy.
Take them in sequence, break them down into sub goals.
You'll get all the League of Legends fans if you do that. You're good.
Trent says, I think the chart says that traditional sports have less backward compatibility than esports. I love the way you worded that, Trent, because I think that's smart. It also shows that esports fans are less likely to inherit fandom of legacy esports. And I think you're absolutely right. Backward compatibility is a really good way of phrasing that. Stuart says, absolutely, Jeff. That's what I was thinking. There you go.